I was wheeled into surgery and heard my husband whisper to the doctor, "If anything goes wrong, don't try too hard." I thought I was dreaming. But then I woke up during the procedure and heard my son say, "Mom's life insurance will cover everything." The doctor looked at me in shock because I was staring right back at him. Subscribe to the channel, leave your like and comment from which part of the world you are watching. Get comfortable and relax. Let's begin. The cold was the first thing I recognized. Not the clean chill of winter air, but a deep, internal cold, as if my blood had been replaced with saline. Then came the sound, a distant rhythmic beeping that seemed to pull at the edges of my consciousness. My eyelids were slabs of concrete. I tried to move a finger, but my body was a distant country, unreachable. Voices swam into focus, distorted as though heard through water. "Should be under." A man's voice, unfamiliar, clinical. "How much longer?" That one I knew, Marcus, my husband of 28 years. He sounded tense, not concerned. There was a difference I could hear now in this suspended state. "The procedure is complete. We're closing. Another 30 minutes for cleanup, then recovery." The clinical voice again, a rustle of fabric, the squeak of a shoe on tile. A different hand brushed my forehead, a gesture that should have been tender. It felt like being marked. "Just rest now, Val." Marcus's voice was closer, a low murmur meant only for the immediate space around my ear, but I heard it with perfect, horrifying clarity. "It won't be much longer now." A second voice, younger, hesitant. "Dad, not here." "Where better?" Marcus's whisper was sharp. "She's gone. For all intents and purposes, she's already gone. The paperwork is clean. The policy pays double for accidental death during surgery. We just have to wait it out. Make sure she doesn't wake up in recovery." The beeping of the monitor spiked. My heart. I felt a jolt of pure terror, a chemical scream that tried to claw its way up my paralyzed throat. "Don't react, don't react." The thought was an order, cold and sudden, my survival instinct sharper than any emotion. "See? Even under, she's stubborn." Derek, my son, my only child. He said it with a familiar, affectionate exasperation that had now curdled into something monstrous. He was confirming a plan. My death was a logistical step to them, an obstacle removed. The clinical voice returned, sharper. "Gentlemen, you need to step out to the waiting area, now." It was not a request. "Of course, doctor." Marcus's tone switched seamlessly to one of grave courtesy. "We just wanted a moment. It's difficult." Their footsteps receded. The room was filled with the mechanical sounds of medicine. I concentrated on the beeping, forcing my breathing, though I had no control over it, to seem even in my mind. I focused on the feeling of the breathing tube in my throat, the pressure of the tape on my face, the blinding light I could sense through my eyelids. I cataloged each sensation. They were anchors. Then, a new presence. Fingers on my wrist, checking a pulse, a slight adjustment to the IV line near my hand, a pause. I could feel someone leaning over me, their breath a faint disturbance in the sterile air. I kept every muscle, every fiber, in a state of absolute surrender. I was a stone. I was a log. Slowly, with a control I did not know I possessed, I allowed my right eyelid to open the barest fraction. A sliver of blazing white light and blurred shapes. A face swam into partial view. A man in blue surgical scrubs, a cap, a mask pulled down below his chin. He was looking directly at my face. His eyes, a calm, intelligent brown, widened. He had seen the slit of my eye. He had seen the consciousness there. Our eyes locked. In his, I saw a rapid calculation, shock, confusion, then a dawning, horrific understanding. He had heard them. He had heard their whispers, and now he saw my awake, terrified eye. He glanced quickly at the door, then back at me. His lips did not move, but his eyes spoke a clear, urgent command. Close. Now. I let my eyelid fall shut. The darkness returned, but it was a different darkness. It was no longer the void of anesthesia. It was a hiding place. I heard him move away, his voice calm as he spoke to a nurse about vitals and transport. But the air in the room had changed. I had an ally, a silent, complicit ally who knew I was a prisoner in my own body. They wheeled me to recovery. I remained a perfect, still thing. I listened to the nurses chat about their shifts, about a medication dosage. I listened to the sound of the wheels on the linoleum, each rotation taking me further from the operating room and back toward the two men who wished me gone. In the recovery bay, curtains drawn around me, they came. Marcus took my limp hand. His palm was damp. "Valerie, can you hear me, sweetheart?" The concern in his voice was a performance. I could hear the slight strain at the edges, the impatience underneath. I focused on the feel of his skin against mine. I memorized the distaste it now inspired. Derek stood at the foot of the bed. "Mom," he said just once. His voice was thick. With guilt or with anticipation, I could not tell. I did not try to move. I did not try to scream. I lay there and I planned. The doctor from the OR entered. Dr. Shaw, a nurse, called him. He examined my charts, shone a light into my unresponsive eyes. His fingers were professional, his touch devoid of the false tenderness of my family. When he lifted my arm to check a reflex, his hand lingered for a second, his thumb pressing once, firmly, against my inner wrist. A deliberate, unmistakable pressure, a signal. I am here. I see you. He spoke to Marcus in a low, grave tone. Her vital signs are stable, but her neurological response is minimal. We'll need to move her to the ICU for closer observation. The situation is delicate. Of course, whatever she needs, Marcus said, the picture of a devoted husband. We just want her comfortable. Comfortable. A word for a dying pet. Rage, hot and clean, flashed through me. It was a useful rage. It burned away the last of the fog and the hurt. It left behind a crystalline focus. As they prepared to transfer me, a nurse adjusted my gown. In the flurry of movement, a small, firm rectangle was slipped between my palm and the stiff sheet. I could not close my fingers around it, but I felt its presence. A folded piece of paper. In the ICU, alone for a few precious minutes, I managed to turn my head a fraction on the pillow. With monumental effort, I slid my hand, with the paper trapped beneath it, under the thin blanket. I worked my fingers, deadened and clumsy, until I could feel the fold of the paper. I could not open it, I could not read it, but its meaning was clear. It was a line thrown to a drowning woman. It was a weapon. The whisper under the lights had not ended my story. It had given me my first crucial piece of intelligence. The enemy had revealed himself. The battlefield was my own life. And lying motionless in that sterile bed, listening to the steady beep of the heart monitor they hoped would soon flatline, I began, silently and with cold precision, to plan my revenge. The first move was simple. I would not die. The second move was already in play. I would listen. And the third move was folded in my hand, a secret waiting to be unfolded. I closed my eyes, and for the first time since the cold took me, I smiled inside. The performance had begun. The folded paper in my hand was my entire world. The ICU was a landscape of sounds, the constant accusing beep of my heart monitor, the low hum of machinery, the squeak of shoes on polished floor. My body was a separate entity, a heavy, unresponsive shell I occupied, but my mind was a vault, and inside it, every sound, every word, was being cataloged and stored. I waited through 2 shift changes. The daylight through the window faded into the artificial glow of overhead lights. My opportunity came when a nurse adjusted my IV line. She turned to document something on a chart at the foot of my bed, her back to me for a full 30 seconds. With a slowness that felt like moving through tar, I bent my wrist. My fingers, stiff and cold, crawled like insects over the paper. I pinched a corner between my thumb and forefinger. I dragged it incrementally toward the edge of the stiff sheet. When the nurse turned back, I was still, the paper now half concealed under the side of my thigh. She checked the monitor, adjusted a dial, and left. The next time I was alone, I worked the paper free. I could not lift my head to see it. I had to rely on touch. I unfolded it against the mattress, my fingers reading the raised impressions of pen on paper. Short, blunt sentences, written in clear block letters. Patient is aware. Do not react. I am Dr. Shaw. You are in danger here. Follow my lead. Blink once for yes, twice for no. Can you understand? I stared at the ceiling, at the acoustic tiles with their tiny perforations. I focused on the muscles of my eyelids. They felt rusty, unreliable. I waited. When the door opened again and I recognized the calm, measured footsteps of Dr. Shaw, I closed my eyes. I heard him check the monitor, felt his presence beside the bed. "Mrs. Johnson," he said, his voice a normal, professional tone for anyone listening. "It's Dr. Shaw. I'm going to check your pupillary response." His fingers gently lifted my eyelid. The bright penlight flashed. In that moment, with his face close to mine, I blinked. Once. Deliberately. He did not react outwardly. He moved to the other eye, repeated the procedure. "No change," he said aloud, for the record. As he released my eyelid, his voice dropped to the barest whisper, his lips barely moving. "Good. They are pushing for a hospice care transfer home. Insurance will cover it. It would isolate you. Do you want to go home?" I blinked twice. "No." "Understood," he whispered. "I will delay, but they are persistent." He straightened up, speaking normally again. "Continue current support. I'll check in later." He left, taking the dangerous note with him, tucked into his palm. The exchange lasted less than a minute. It was the most important conversation of my life. Marcus and Derek visited in the evening. Their voices were a low, tense murmur near the door before they approached. "This is taking too long," Marcus said, not bothering to lower his voice fully now. He stood by the bed, a looming silhouette. "The anesthesiologist said there could be brain damage, but this is just a coma. The policy terms are specific, Derek. The clock is ticking." "So what do we do?" Derek's voice was strained. "We can't just, we don't have to do anything. We just need the right medical opinion, a confirmation of no meaningful recovery. Then we can make comfortable choices." The euphemism was glassy and smooth. Comfortable choices. I knew it meant removing support, letting me slip away peacefully at home, where there were no monitors, no independent nurses. "She looks so normal," Derek said. I felt his gaze on my face. There was a faint tremor in his voice. "She's not in there, son." Marcus placed a hand on Derek's shoulder. The gesture felt like a correction. "That's not your mother anymore. It's a shell. We have to be practical. My real estate deals are collapsing. That money is our fresh start. It's what she would have wanted to take care of us." The lie was so vast it seemed to suck the oxygen from the room. I had never cared about his speculative deals. I had urged caution. The money he spoke of was my life, converted into a transaction. Derek didn't answer. I heard him pull a chair and sit heavily. Marcus paced. After a few minutes, his phone buzzed. He walked to the window, his back turned. "Yes, I'm still at the hospital," he said, his voice adopting a weary, devoted tone. "No change. It's devastating. I know the premiums are astronomical, but the payout is the only thing that will cover these extended care costs." He was rehearsing, laying the groundwork for sympathy and for the inevitable, expensive outcome. He listened. Then his voice changed, grew tighter. "What do you mean the transfer authorization is delayed? Who delayed it?" "Dr. Shaw, I want to speak to the hospital administrator tomorrow. This is unacceptable." He ended the call. I stored the information. Dr. Shaw was acting, creating bureaucratic friction, Problem? Derek asked. Just paperwork. It'll be handled. Marcus's tone was final. He came back to the bedside. He leaned over, his breath smelling of coffee and mint. Hang in there, Val, he said too softly for Derek to hear. The words were not encouragement. They were a cold command to die according to his schedule. They left shortly after. The night stretched, long and silent except for the machines. My mind worked. Going home was a trap, but the hospital was not safe indefinitely. Marcus would eventually force the issue. I needed a third option. I needed sanctuary. Early in the morning, during a quiet period, Dr. Shaw returned. He pretended to examine my chart. His hand rested on the bed rail, his fingers tapping a slow, deliberate sequence. 1, 2, 3. Pause. 1, 2. It was not random. I concentrated. A, B, C? No, it was a number. 1, 2, 3, 12. 1, 2, 12. As he turned to leave, his hand brushed mine. A small, cold, cylindrical object was pressed into my palm. A pen. Not a ballpoint, but a slim plastic hospital pen. I closed my fingers around it. When I was next turned by the nurses, I managed with agonizing effort to slide my hand under the thin mattress. Using the pen, its tip retracted, I made a small tear in the fabric of the mattress underside. I pushed the pen inside. A weapon, a tool. It was nothing, and it was everything. The next day, Marcus arrived with a different doctor, an older man I did not recognize. He introduced himself as Dr. Phillips, a specialist in prolonged comatose states. He examined me briskly, shining a light, testing reflexes. As I told Mr. Johnson, Dr. Phillips said, his voice bearing the weight of supposed authority, the likelihood of meaningful neurological recovery after this much time is statistically negligible. The most humane course, and the one most insurers eventually require, is palliative home care. It's a more comfortable environment for the end. You see, Marcus said, his voice thick with manipulated grief. We just want what's best for her, to be in her own home. Dr. Shaw entered then. His presence was calm but immediate. I've reviewed Mrs. Johnson's charts, he said, his tone respectful but firm. While I respect Dr. Phillips's opinion, I've observed subtle, intermittent cortical activity on the advanced monitors. It's inconsistent, but it's there. Transferring her now could disrupt a fragile stabilization. I must recommend against it for at least another 48 hours for further observation. A silence hung in the room. I could feel Marcus's anger like a heat source. More observation? For what? Marcus's control frayed at the edges. To run up more bills? To prolong this suffering? To ensure every medical avenue is considered, Dr. Shaw replied, unflappable. It is hospital protocol. I'm sure your insurance would want us to be thorough. It was a checkmate, spoken in the language of liability and care. Marcus could not argue without sounding suspiciously eager. Fine, 48 hours, Marcus bit out, but then we're taking her home. After they left, I lay in the artificial quiet. The pen hidden in the mattress was a seed of defiance. Dr. Shaw had bought me 2 days. 2 days to plan an escape from a prison that looked like a home, from executioners who called themselves family. My performance would have to be flawless. My listening would have to be acute, and I would need more than a pen. I would need an army of one. I thought of Keisha. Her number was one of the few I knew by heart. Getting to a phone was now my primary objective. The clock Dr. Shaw had stalled was still ticking, but now I could hear its seconds clearly, and I began to count them with purpose. The pen hidden in the mattress was my only leverage. The 48 hours Dr. Shaw had secured were already evaporating. I spent the first night focusing on small, critical movements. I practiced flexing my toes inside the stiff hospital socks. I worked on turning my head a centimeter to the left or right. The paralysis was receding, but I could not let it show. My body was a tool that needed to be functional, but its recovery had to remain my secret. During the morning rounds, Dr. Shaw was accompanied by a nurse. He performed his usual examination. As he lifted my hand to check for edema, his fingers pressed twice against my pulse point. A signal. Later. I kept my eyes shut, my breathing even. He returned alone in the early afternoon during the change between the day and evening shifts when the unit was at its busiest. He adjusted the blinds, casting the room in a softer light. He stood close to the bed, his voice a low, steady stream meant to sound like a doctor talking to an unresponsive patient. Your husband has signed the hospice transfer papers. It's scheduled for tomorrow morning at 10. He paused. I felt a cold wave crash through me. I cannot stop it without raising irreversible suspicion. Do you understand? I needed to blink once for yes, but I could not risk it with the door open. I remained still, listening. I have a personal cell phone, he continued, his back to the door as he pretended to study the IV drip. If you have a contact, someone you trust, absolutely. I can attempt a call from here. It would be brief. It would be risky. Keisha's number marched through my mind. I had dialed it 1,000 times. I formed the digits with my tongue against the roof of my mouth, a silent recitation. Dr. Shaw saw my minute movement. My index finger twitched, just once, against the sheet. He gave a slight nod. I will need the number. I will hold my notepad here. Try to write it. It was an impossible task. My hand lay palm down on the blanket. He slid his small notepad and a pen under my fingers. I could feel the smooth paper, the groove of the spiral binding. I concentrated every ounce of my will into my right hand. The pen felt as heavy as a crowbar. My fingers would not obey. They spasmed, making a weak scratch on the paper. He watched the door, then looked down. The mark was a meaningless scribble. He let out a slow breath. Again, one number at a time. I will say them. Stop me if I'm wrong. He began. The area code is 618. I did not move. 619? A pause. I managed to tap my finger once. A yes. Good. First digit. 6. No movement. 7. A tap. He proceeded like this, with an excruciating patience I clung to. 7 digits later, he had the full number. He read it back to me, and I tapped once for confirmation. He tore off the top sheet of the notepad, folded it, and put it in his pocket. The failed scribble sheet he crumpled and dropped into the hazardous waste bin. I will call this number in 1 hour, he whispered. I will say I am a doctor treating you. I will give them a message. What is the message? I had thought of this. The message had to be clear, urgent and believable only to Keisha. I moved my lips, a dry, soundless formation of words. He leaned closer, his ear near my mouth. I pushed air out, shaping the words with immense effort. Tell Keisha, Valerie says, the hydrangeas by the back fence need water tonight. He pulled back, his eyes searching mine. It was a nonsense phrase to anyone else. To Keisha, it was a direct line to our past. The hydrangeas by the back fence were at my first house, the one I'd owned before Marcus. They had nearly died during a heat wave the summer we painted the porch. Keisha and I had spent an entire evening reviving them with gallon jugs of water. Need water tonight was an old urgent code between us. It meant, I am in trouble. I need you to act now. Understood, Dr. Shaw said. He left without another word. The next hour was an eternity. I listened to every distant phone ring, every page over the hospital intercom. My mind raced. Would Keisha be home? Would she understand? Would she believe a stranger's call? At precisely 4:15 p.m., Dr. Shaw re-entered. He came to my bedside, took my wrist as if checking my pulse. His voice was barely a breath. The message was delivered. The recipient said, "Tell her I have the watering can ready. She will be in the hospital parking lot in the blue sedan at 2 a.m. The night nurse on this shift is amenable to looking the other way for a 15-minute window near the service elevator. Can you sit up? Can you stand with support?" This was the moment of truth I had practiced in the dark. I gave one slow, deliberate blink. Yes. At 1:55 a.m., I will disconnect the monitor leads. You will have to move quickly. There will be a wheelchair. Do not speak. Do not look at anyone. Go to the service elevator, take it to the ground floor loading dock. The car will be there. He left. The plan was set. It was reckless and fragile, dependent on the corruption of one nurse and the courage of one friend. It was my only chance. The evening passed. Marcus called the nurses' station, but did not visit. Derek did not come. They were likely preparing the house for my return, a return that would now never happen. At 1:50 a.m., the night nurse, a woman with a brisk manner, entered. She did not look at me. She checked the hallway, then gave a short nod. At 1:55, Dr. Shaw appeared. Without a word, he peeled the sensor pads from my chest, silencing the heart monitor. The steady beep flatlined into a single continuous tone for 2 seconds before he switched the machine off. The silence was profound. "Now," he said. I pushed myself up. My arms shook, and a wave of dizziness threatened to pull me under. Dr. Shaw gripped my elbow, his hold firm. He helped me swing my legs over the side of the bed. My feet touched the cold floor. I stood, my knees buckling. He and the nurse caught me, guiding me into the waiting wheelchair. They draped a hospital blanket over my shoulders and another over my lap, concealing my gown. The nurse wheeled me out into the dim hallway. We turned away from the nurses' station toward a set of double doors marked Authorized Personnel Only. Dr. Shaw used a key card. The doors swung open. The service corridor was lit by stark fluorescent lights, lined with carts of linens and supplies. It was deserted. The service elevator was large and cold. The nurse pushed me inside. Dr. Shaw stayed behind. "Good luck, Mrs. Johnson," he said, and the doors closed. The descent was quick. The doors opened onto the loading dock. The night air hit me, cool and smelling of concrete and distant city. Parked 10 feet away, its engine running, was a blue sedan. The passenger door opened. Keisha got out. Her face, under the yellow security light, was set in a hard mask of focus. She did not gasp or cry out. She took the handles of the wheelchair from the nurse, who melted back into the elevator without a word. "I've got you, Val," Keisha said, her voice thick but steady. She helped me stand, her arm a solid brace around my waist. She half carried me to the car, bundled me into the passenger seat, and fastened the seatbelt around me as if I were a child. She folded the wheelchair, put it in the trunk, and got behind the wheel. She drove in silence for 5 minutes, leaving the hospital complex behind. Only when we were on the highway merging into the sparse late-night traffic did she speak. "Hydrangeas by the back fence," she said. "My God, Valerie." I turned my head to look at her. In the dashboard lights, I saw a tear track gleaming on her cheek, but her hands were tight and sure on the steering wheel. I reached out, my movement still slow and awkward, and placed my hand on her arm. "Thank you," I said. My voice was a dry rasp, unfamiliar to my own ears. She covered my hand with hers, squeezed once, and then returned her grip to the wheel. "Don't thank me yet. We have work to do. You're safe now. You're home." She did not mean my house. She meant hers. The car moved through the sleeping city, taking me from a place of calculated death to a place of possible survival. The performance was over. The planning could truly begin. The smell of coffee and old books pulled me from a thin, anxious sleep. For a disorienting moment, I did not know where I was. The light was soft, filtered through lace curtains. The blanket over me was a heavy, knitted afghan in shades of blue and green. Then I remembered Keisha's guest room. The walls were lined with shelves, every inch filled with books. It was a room that felt lived in and safe. I pushed myself up against the headboard. My body ached, a deep muscular soreness from disuse and tension. But the heavy paralysis was gone. I could move my limbs. The simple act of flexing my fingers felt like a victory. The door opened a crack. Keisha peeked in. Seeing me awake, she entered carrying a tray. On it was a bowl of oatmeal, a slice of toast, and a large glass of water. She set it on the nightstand. "How do you feel?" she asked. Her voice was practical, but her eyes scanned me with a librarian's meticulous concern. "Weak, but clear," I said. My voice was stronger. "Thank you, Keisha, for everything." She waved a hand, dismissing the gratitude. "Eat, then we talk." She sat in the armchair by the window, giving me space. I ate slowly. The food was plain, but it tasted like sustenance, like fuel. When I finished, she took the tray. "Dr. Shaw will be here in an hour. He called early. He said it has to look like a house call for a different patient, so he can't stay long." I nodded. "What time is it?" 10 in the morning. Marcus has called my phone 3 times. Her mouth was a tight line. "He's frantic. Said you were taken from the hospital, that it was a mix-up with another patient. He's demanding answers. I told him I hadn't heard from you, that I was distraught. I played the part." "Good," I said. The thought of his panic was a small, cold comfort. He can't involve the police without exposing his own story. He'll have to search quietly. "He will search here," Keisha stated. "He knows I'm your closest friend. He'll come eventually." "Then we have until he does to build a case." I pushed the Afghan aside and carefully placed my feet on the floor. I stood, holding onto the bedpost until the dizziness passed. I need to see. I need to know everything. Keisha helped me to the small, cluttered dining table in the main room. She'd already been working. A notepad was open, filled with her precise handwriting. My personal laptop, which she had retrieved from my house days ago under the guise of fetching me some comforts, was charging next to it. "Start from the beginning," she said. "Tell me exactly what you heard." I did. I recounted Marcus's whisper, Derek's complicit confirmation, the discussion of the insurance policy, the pressure of the timeline. I told her about Dr. Shaw's note, the faked coma, the planned hospice transfer. Speaking it aloud made it real in a new way. The facts were bare and monstrous. Keisha listened without interruption, her face growing stonier with each sentence. When I finished, she let out a long, controlled breath. "So, it's murder, premeditated, for money." "Yes." "Then we send them to prison," she said, simple and final. "It's not that simple. It's my word against theirs. I have no recording from the OR Dr. Shaw heard the whispers, but it's circumstantial. They will say I was hallucinating from the anesthesia. They will say Derek was just humoring his distraught father." I had thought this through in the hospital bed. We need evidence they can't explain away. We need to trap them with their own greed. Dr. Shaw arrived precisely at 11. He carried a physician's bag and wore a look of professional concern. Keisha let him in and he nodded to me. "You look significantly improved, Mrs. Johnson." "I feel it. Thanks to you." He set his bag down. "May I?" He proceeded to check my vitals. Blood pressure, heart rate. "Physically, you are recovering well. The effects of the sedation and the immobility are fading. You must continue to rest and hydrate." His medical persona was intact, but his eyes were urgent. "We have a narrow window. Your husband has reported you as a missing, vulnerable adult. The hospital is conducting an internal review. My colleague, the nurse who assisted us, is secure, but the situation is unstable. What do we need?" I asked. "Concrete evidence of intent. The insurance policy is key. Its terms, its value, his financial pressures. If we can establish motive and a provable plan, the legal path becomes clear." He opened his bag and withdrew a sealed envelope. "This is a copy of the operative report and my own addendum, noting the patient's state of awareness and the overheard conversation, placed in a sealed file. It is not official, but it is a contemporaneous record from a medical professional. It will carry weight with the right attorney." I took the envelope. It felt heavy with potential. "What about Derek?" Dr. Shaw's expression softened slightly. "The son is the weaker link. His reaction in the OR was one of hesitation, not initiative. If pressure is applied correctly, he may break. but you cannot approach him directly. Not yet. We spread the documents on the table. Keisha produced a folder with printouts. Marcus's publicly listed real estate, LLC, property records showing several recent quick sale transactions at a loss. She'd been busy. "The motive is here," she said, pointing to the figures. "He's leveraged. He's sinking. This insurance payout isn't for a fresh start. It's a life raft." I looked at the numbers, at the familiar signatures on documents I had never seen. A cold clarity settled over me. This was not a crime of passion. It was a spreadsheet calculation. My life had a dollar value in a cell on a screen. "So we use the same weapon," I said. My voice was quiet. "We use the money. We use the law. We don't attack them in the dark. We dismantle the life they were trying to buy with my death, piece by piece." Dr. Shaw nodded. "The first step is to secure your assets. Change passwords, lock accounts, redirect any funds you can legally control. I have a contact, a lawyer named Anna Flores. She specializes in financial fraud and domestic cases. She is discreet and thorough. I can arrange an introduction." "Do it," I said. "The second step," Keisha added, "is information. We need access to Marcus's private files, his email. We need that insurance policy document." I looked at my laptop. "I know his old passwords. He's lazy. He hasn't changed them in years. He uses the same variations." It was a small intimacy that now felt like a violation, but I would use it. Dr. Shaw stood. "I must go. My presence here too long is a risk. Contact me through Keisha only. Do not use your personal phone." He looked at me. "Your recovery is your shield now. The longer you remain missing, the more desperate they will become. Desperate people make mistakes. Listen for them." After he left, Keisha and I sat at the table. The afternoon sun slanted across the scattered papers. I opened my laptop. The screen glowed to life, asking for a password. I typed in my own, the one I used for everything. I navigated to our joint bank account first. I stared at the login screen. I typed in the username, Marcus Johnson. For the password, I tried our anniversary date, followed by an exclamation point. It was the password he used for his golf club login. The screen hesitated, then refreshed. We were in. The first digital door had opened. I turned the laptop so Keisha could see. The numbers on the screen told a story of steady depletion, of large transfers to unknown accounts. "Okay," I said, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. "Let's begin." The blue glow of the laptop screen was the only light in Keisha's guest room as night fell. The numbers on the banking portal were a clinical map of betrayal. Our joint savings account, which should have held a comfortable buffer, was drained to a few $100s. The history showed a series of large transfers over the past 6 months, each labeled vaguely: business investment, portfolio adjustment, loan payment. "Where did it go?" Keisha whispered, looking over my shoulder. She had brought me a cup of tea that had gone cold on the desk. "His separate business account," I said, my voice flat. I navigated to the login for his real estate LLC. I tried the password I remembered, the name of his first brokerage, followed by the year he started. Access denied. I tried a variation, denied again. He had changed this one. I moved to his personal email. He used the same email for everything. The password here was simpler, a variation of his mother's maiden name and his birthday. The inbox loaded. It was a flood of anxiety. Late payment notices from commercial lenders, angry emails from partners in failed development deals. Subject line screamed, "Final demand, foreclosure notice, lawsuit filing imminent." I opened one at random. It was a formal notice of default on a loan for a 4-unit apartment building he had bought as a flip. The debt was 6 figures. "He's not just sinking," I said to Keisha. "He's already on the bottom. This insurance money isn't for a new start. It's to keep the creditors from breaking down the door." I searched the email for the insurance company's name. There were several automated payment reminders. Then I found it. An email from the agent with the subject, "Updated policy documentation. Confirmation of Accidental Death Benefit Rider. The attachment was a PDF. My hand was steady as I clicked it open. The document was long and dense with legal language. I scrolled to the summary page. There it was, my life. A $2 million base policy and a rider, an extra clause, that doubled the payout to $4 million in the event of accidental death. The listed examples included medical misadventure during surgery. The premium for this rider was exorbitant. He had taken it out 11 months ago, around the time his first major deal began to falter. "He bet on my death," I said. The words were factual. He took a gamble paying a high premium for a huge payoff if I died in a specific way. The surgery was his opportunity. Keisha placed a hand on my shoulder. Her grip was firm. "We have the motive. Document it. Screenshot everything." I did. I captured every overdue notice, every desperate email, the policy document. I saved the files to a secure cloud drive Keisha set up, one with two-factor authentication. The evidence was digital, but it felt solid, real. Then I went back to the joint bank account. There were several automated payments set up: the mortgage, utilities, the insurance premium itself. I navigated to the settings. With a few clicks, I canceled the auto pay for the insurance premium. Let him get the next bill and wonder why it wasn't paid. Let him have to manually cover it and see the money gone from his account. Next, I found the portal for our home equity line of credit. It had a zero balance, but it was open, with a significant limit, a temptation. I logged in. The password was the same as the joint account. I changed the password immediately, locking him out. Then I reduced the credit limit to $1,000, the minimum allowed. It would take effect within 24 hours. "He'll notice that," Keisha said. "He'll notice everything eventually. The goal is to make him nervous, to make him make a mistake." My fingers moved to the investment account we held jointly. It was a retirement fund. I couldn't liquidate it without penalties and his signature, but I could change the contact email and the mailing address. I updated them to a new secure email I created and to Keisha's P.O. box. All statements would now come to us. The work was meticulous and quiet. Click, confirm, save. Click, confirm, save. With each action, I felt a fraction of my autonomy return. I was not stealing. I was reclaiming control of systems that were meant to be shared. Around midnight, as I was methodically changing passwords on every shared utility account, Keisha's personal phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. She read it aloud, her voice grim. "Keisha, it's Marcus. I'm worried sick. Have you heard anything at all? The police say they can't do much yet. I'm losing my mind. Please, if you know something." "He's probing," I said. "He doesn't believe you, but he can't accuse you." "What do I say?" "Tell him the truth, that you haven't heard from me, that you're praying. Then ask him if there's any news from the hospital about how I could have been moved. Put the pressure back on his story." Keisha typed out the reply. We waited. Several minutes later, his response came. "Hospital says it was a paperwork error with another patient. They're investigating. It's a nightmare. Call me if you hear anything." I looked at Keisha. "A paperwork error. That's the story he's forcing the hospital to tell. Dr. Shaw said they were conducting a review. Marcus is trying to control the narrative." I turned back to the laptop. Let's give him something else to worry about. I accessed the online portal for his cell phone account. I used his mother's maiden name for the security question. I was in. I navigated to the usage details. I set up text and email alerts for any data overage charges and for any international calls. Then I changed the account password too. The final step for the night was the credit monitoring. I enrolled both of our social security numbers in a high-level identity protection service, paid for from the joint account before I locked it down completely. It would send alerts for any new credit inquiries or accounts opened in our names. If he tried to take out more loans using my identity, I would know. I closed the laptop. The room was dark now, save for the streetlight filtering through the curtains. My hands ached from typing. My mind was clear, focused. He will wake up tomorrow. I said to Keisha. He will try to pay the insurance bill and find the auto pay canceled. He might try to access the line of credit and find it reduced. He will call the phone company to complain about the alerts and find he can't log in. They will be small things, irritations, but they will feel like traps closing. He will start to feel watched. Keisha nodded, and we watch. We wait. Yes, I said. The digital ghost was now active in the machinery of his life. My first strikes were silent and invisible. They would not draw blood, but they would spread a slow, cold fear. The hunter was now being hunted, and he did not yet know who or what was pulling the strings. The alerts began at 8:17 the next morning. A notification on the secure email, a credit inquiry from a personal loan company. Marcus had tried to apply for a line of credit in his name only. The inquiry was denied. I felt a thin, cold satisfaction. His avenues were closing. Keisha's phone rang an hour later. It was Marcus. She put it on speaker, her finger to her lips. His voice was strained, the charm sanded away by a raw edge of frustration. Keisha, have you heard anything? Anything at all? Nothing, Marcus, I'm sorry. Have the police made progress? They're useless. It's like she vanished. And now I've got problems with the bank, some glitch with the accounts. I can't access anything. I can't even pay her insurance premium. He was talking too fast, venting. I need to keep that policy active for her care, for everything. That's terrible, Keisha said, her voice a perfect blend of sympathy and ignorance. Could it be identity theft? With all that's going on? I don't know. It feels targeted. There was a long pause. We could hear his ragged breathing. He's got to be involved. Who? That doctor, Shaw. He was too interested. He delayed her transfer. He was there when she went missing. I'm going to the hospital board today. I'm filing a formal complaint. The call ended shortly after. Keisha looked at me. He's lashing out. He's scared. Good, I said. A scared enemy was an enemy who could make a fatal mistake. In the afternoon, a different call came. It was Derek. His voice, when Keisha answered, was young and lost. Auntie Keisha. He hadn't called her that since he was a boy. Derek, what's wrong? I need to talk to someone. He's not himself. He's yelling about conspiracies. He says Mom was taken, but the hospital says it was a mistake. I don't know what to believe. Keisha's eyes met mine. I nodded once. You can talk to me, Derek. You sound upset. I am. I keep thinking about her, in that bed, not moving, and His voice broke. I said things. When we thought she couldn't hear, I need to tell her I'm sorry, but I can't. She's gone. This was the opportunity, a crack in the foundation. I scribbled on a notepad and pushed it toward Keisha. Put me on, speaker, I won't speak. Keisha understood. Her voice softened, becoming pastoral, the tone she used with distraught patrons at the library. Derek, honey, sometimes we need to say the words, even if we don't think the person can hear them. It's for us, not for them. Do you want to try? You can say them to me, and I'll imagine I'm her for a moment. It might help. A long, shuddering sigh came through the speaker. Okay. Keisha held the phone between us. She gave me a look of fierce encouragement. I closed my eyes, preparing to be a silent witness. Mom? Derek's voice was a fragile thing. I don't know if you're out there somewhere. I hope you are. I need you to know I'm so sorry. A wet, ragged breath. Dad said it was the only way. He said we were going to lose everything. The house, the business, all of it. He said the policy was for accidents, that it was just a backup plan. But then you had to have the surgery, and he said it was fate, a way out. My blood turned to ice. I kept my breathing even, silent. He made it sound so logical, like a business decision, and I was scared too. I have debts. My startup, it's failing. I needed the money too. I let him convince me. He was crying now, soft, helpless sobs. I sat there and I agreed. I let him think I was okay with it. But when I saw you in that bed, I knew it was wrong. It was so wrong. And now you're gone, and I have this guilt. It's eating me alive. I wish I could take it back. I wish I had said no. I wish I had protected you." The confession hung in the air of Keisha's quiet apartment. It was everything and nothing. It was a son's guilty lament, not a sworn legal testimony, but it was real. It was the truth, unprompted and dripping with remorse. Keisha recovered first, her voice gentle. "Derek, that's a heavy burden. You have to forgive yourself. Your mother loved you. She would want you to find a way to make things right." "How?" he pleaded. "She's gone. How do I make it right?" "You start by telling the truth," Keisha said carefully. "To yourself first, and then, when you're ready, to anyone who needs to hear it." He was quiet for a moment. "Dad would never forgive me. He'd say I betrayed the family." "Sometimes, Derek, family isn't about blood. It's about who doesn't ask you to do terrible things." The wisdom in her words was blunt and clear. They talked for a few more minutes, Derek calming slightly. When he hung up, Keisha placed the phone on the table. We sat in the silence, the ghost of his confession between us. I stood up and walked to the window. The street outside was ordinary. People walked their dogs. A car drove past. Life continued. Inside me, a seismic shift had settled. The raw, burning hatred I felt for Marcus now had a distinct, separate space for Derek. It was not the same. For my son, there was a terrible, aching disappointment and a cold, strategic calculation. He was a liability to Marcus now, a weak point, a potential source of evidence if he cracked under formal pressure. "He doesn't know you heard," Keisha said. "No, and he can't know. Not yet." I turned from the window. His guilt is a tool. We need to make Marcus doubt him. We need to drive a wedge between them. A fractured alliance is easier to break. How? We use the financial pressure. Marcus is already paranoid. We make it seem like the leaks, the glitches could be coming from someone close, someone who might be having second thoughts. The plan formed as I spoke, cold and clear. We have the lawyer meeting tomorrow. We proceed with the legal separation and the fraud complaint. That will be a direct public blow. Marcus will look for someone to blame. We will make sure Derek is the obvious candidate. I sat back down at the laptop. The digital ghost had done its work of causing chaos. Now it was time for the ghost to whisper a specific, destructive suggestion. I opened a new, untraceable email account. I drafted a single line, addressed to Marcus's primary email, which I still could access. I used language Derek might use, a phrase he'd said as a teenager when scared. "This is getting too deep. I can't keep quiet." I did not send it, not yet. I saved it as a draft. It was a weapon to be deployed at the precise moment when Marcus was at his most desperate and suspicious. The son's doubt was no longer just his private agony. It had become a variable in my equation, a potential key to the final lock. I had listened, and I had learned. Now I would use it. The draft email sat in the untraceable account, a loaded weapon. I did not send it. Timing was everything. First, we needed the official legal strike. The meeting with Ana Flores was at 10 in the morning in an unmarked office building downtown. Keisha drove, her knuckles white on the wheel. I wore a simple blouse and slacks Keisha had bought for me, clothes that felt both familiar and like a disguise. Ana Flores' office was a study in quiet efficiency. The walls were a soft gray, the furniture modern and clean. Ana herself was a woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. She shook my hand, her grip firm. "Mrs. Johnson, Dr. Shaw briefed me on the broad strokes. I've reviewed the documents you forwarded. Please sit." We sat across from her desk. Keisha placed a supportive hand on my arm. I laid out the facts in the same clinical order I had for Keisha. The overheard plot, the insurance policy, the financial records showing ruin. The email confession from Derek, which I played a recording of on my phone, Keisha had, with my silent permission, recorded his call. His broken voice filled the professional space. I said things when we thought she couldn't hear. Anna listened without interruption, taking occasional notes on a legal pad. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair. This is a complex case of attempted murder for financial gain. The evidence is compelling, but largely circumstantial from a prosecutorial standpoint. Your testimony is crucial, but it will be attacked. They will claim anesthetic hallucination. The son's recorded confession is damning, but it was obtained under potentially questionable circumstances. A call to a family friend without his knowledge of recording. Its admissibility could be challenged. What do you recommend? I asked. We proceed on two parallel tracks. The first is civil and protective. We file an emergency petition for legal separation. This will immediately freeze all marital assets and bar him from disposing of any property. Given the evidence of financial fraud and your status as a missing person, the judge will grant it. I will also file a formal complaint with the state insurance commissioner, alleging fraud in the inducement of the policy and outlining the suspected plot. This triggers an independent investigation. Insurance companies have vast resources and no tolerance for fraud. They will turn his life inside out. She tapped her pen on the pad. The second track is criminal. I will present all this evidence, including Dr. Shaw's sealed statement, to a contact in the district attorney's office. They will be interested, but they move slowly. The civil actions will apply immediate pressure. He will be served with court papers. He will have to answer to a judge. He will have to explain the insurance policy and his finances under oath. Will it be enough for an arrest? Keisha asked. Not immediately, but it will create a cage of legal and financial obligations around him. It will make any move he makes suspicious. And, she added, looking at me, it formally reestablishes your existence and your position as a victim seeking protection. You cease to be a missing person and become a plaintiff. I considered this. It was not the swift, dramatic arrest I had imagined in my darkest moments. It was a systematic dismantling. It was the law, slow and grinding, being turned in my favor. Do it, I said. There will be a media component, Anna warned. When the separation filing becomes public, especially with the insurance fraud allegation attached, there may be local news interest. Your story will be that you fled a dangerous domestic situation after discovering a plot against your life. You will need to be prepared for that. I nodded. I am prepared. Anna spent the next hour having me sign a stack of documents, petitions, affidavits, authorizations for release of records. Each signature was a deliberate, firm stroke of the pen. The notary in the office stamped and sealed the pages with a definitive thwack. The sound was final. As we were leaving, Anna said, "The papers will be served to him at his home address tomorrow morning. The insurance commissioner will be notified today. I will contact the DA by end of business. You should expect a significant reaction." Dr. Shaw had also acted. He sent a secure message to Keisha's phone confirming he had submitted a formal report to the hospital's ethics board and the state medical review board, detailing the overheard conversation and the pressure to transfer a potentially aware patient. It was a professional grenade that would destroy Marcus's credibility with the hospital and add another layer of official scrutiny. We returned to Keisha's apartment. The wait began. I checked the draft email one last time. With the legal machinery now in motion, the psychological pressure needed to peak. I opened Marcus's email inbox. I still had access, and I saw the frantic chain of emails to his lawyer, to the bank, to the hospital administrator. His tone was shifting from frustration to panic, the perfect moment. I opened the draft. I sent the email from the untraceable account. This is getting too deep. I can't keep quiet. It was sent at 4:45 p.m., a time when Derek might be away from his father, when Marcus would be alone to see it and let paranoia fester. The reaction was almost immediate. At 5:20 p.m., Marcus's email activity showed a frantic series of searches. How to trace an email, can a text be anonymous, recording laws in state. He did not reply to the anonymous message. He just stewed. At 7 p.m., Keisha's phone rang. It was Derek. His voice was shaky. "Auntie Keisha, something's wrong. He just screamed at me. For nothing. He asked me if I'd been talking to people, to lawyers or the police. He said someone was trying to ruin him. He looked at me like I was a stranger, like I was the enemy." Keisha held my gaze. "What did you say?" "I said no, of course I said no, but he didn't believe me. He said if he went down, we all went down. He's scaring me." The wedge was in. The crack was widening. I took the phone from Keisha. I did not speak. I simply held it so Derek could hear my steady, calm breathing for 3 seconds, then handed it back. A ghost of a presence. Keisha recovered smoothly. "Derek, you need to be careful. Your father is under a lot of stress. Just keep your head down. Call me if you need to." When she hung up, she looked at me. That was risky. "He needed to feel a connection," I said, "to something other than his father's sinking ship. He heard a breath. He will wonder. He will hope. It makes him more likely to break toward us when the time comes." The first official volley landed at 8:30 a.m. the next morning. A text from Ana Flores. Concise. "Paper served. Insurance commissioner notified. DA's office has file. Hold tight." A minute later, Marcus's phone call to Keisha's number was a blast of static and fury. She put it on speaker. He was beyond control. "Keisha, did you know about this? A process server just handed me a court order. Separation, fraud allegations, what is this? Who is helping her?" "Marcus, I don't know what you're talking about," Keisha said, her voice cool. "Don't lie to me. She's alive, isn't she? And she's doing this. She's trying to destroy me." His voice cracked. "Where is she? You tell her. You tell her she's dead to me. She's already dead." The line went dead. In the silence that followed, I felt nothing but a cold clarity. The legal sting had been delivered. The trap was now visible. He was inside it, and he was starting to rage against the bars. The next move was his, and I would be listening. The echo of Marcus's threat. "She's already dead," hung in the air of Keisha's apartment. His rage was a tangible thing, a signal that the pressure was working. The legal cage was shaking him, and a caged animal is at its most dangerous, but also its most predictable. He would look for someone to blame. I had provided a candidate, Derek. 2 days earlier, I had asked Keisha to perform a task. Using the spare key I still had on my keychain, she had entered our house during a time she knew Marcus would be at a forced meeting with his lawyer. Her mission was simple: place a small, voice-activated recording device in the living room, tucked into the bookshelf behind a row of my old gardening manuals. It was a risk, but a calculated one. We needed irrefutable evidence, and the best evidence would come from their own mouths, in the sanctity of the home they had plotted in. Now, we waited. The device transmitted audio to a secure app on Keisha's tablet. We monitored it in shifts, listening to the empty silence of the house, the occasional phone ring, Marcus's frustrated muttering to himself. The confrontation happened on the evening of the second day. I was sitting at the dining table reviewing the insurance commissioner's acknowledgement letter Ana Flores had forwarded when Keisha rushed in from the kitchen, the tablet in her hands. "They're both there," she whispered, "and Marcus is yelling." She set the tablet down and activated the speaker. The audio was slightly tinny, but every word was clear. "What did you do?" Marcus's voice was a low, venomous snarl. "What are you talking about?" Derek sounded tired, defensive. "The email. This is getting too deep. Was that you? Trying to scare me? Or was it a message to someone else?" A thump. Perhaps a hand hitting a table. "I didn't send any email. I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't lie to me. First the bank accounts get locked, then the credit line disappears, then the court papers show up. And that email. Someone is sabotaging me from the inside. It has to be you." You've been weak since the beginning, sniveling to Keisha on the phone. Do you think I'm stupid? I've been weak? Derek's voice rose, a flare of long suppressed anger. You're the one who came up with this insane plan. Murder our mom for insurance money? What kind of person does that? You said it was just a backup, a hypothetical. Then you made it real. I made it necessary, Marcus roared, to save us, to save you from your own failures. That startup money you burned through, that was my money. This was the only way to get it back. By killing her? Derek's voice broke into a shout. She was in a hospital bed, Dad, and you were counting the minutes until she stopped breathing. I heard you on the phone with the insurance agent asking about the claims process timeline while she was still in the ICU. A heavy silence. Then Marcus, his voice chillingly calm. So, you do have a conscience. A little late for that, son. You're just as guilty as I am. You sat there, you agreed. You wanted the money, too. You're not some innocent bystander, you're an accomplice. I didn't know you'd actually try to go through with it. I thought you'd get scared. Well, I'm not scared. I'm furious. And now, thanks to your mother's little disappearing act and whoever is helping her, the whole plan is collapsing. The insurance company has launched a fraud investigation. The medical board is questioning the hospital. I have a court order freezing every asset I have. We have nothing, and it's her fault. And if you're siding with her, it's your fault too. I'm not siding with anyone, I just want out. There is no out. Marcus's voice was a razor. Not for you. The only way out is through. We stick to the story. She had a tragic medical accident and then disappeared, likely confused, maybe deceased. We are the grieving victims. We mourn publicly. We collect the insurance when this all blows over. That is the only path forward. And if she comes back? Derek asked, his voice small. Another silence, longer this time. When Marcus spoke again, each word was deliberate and cold. Then we have a much more serious problem, a problem we would have to solve permanently, outside of a hospital. Do you understand me? There would be no room for your conscience then. It would be you, or it would be her. Choose. The audio captured a sharp intake of breath from Derek, then the sound of footsteps, a door slamming. The argument was over. Keisha and I stared at the tablet as the audio faded back into the hum of the house. My hands were steady on the table. I had just heard my husband confirm the murder plot, threaten its completion, and implicitly threaten our son to ensure his compliance. It was all there. The motive, the admission, the ongoing intent. We have it, Keisha said, her voice hushed with a kind of grim awe. We have everything, I corrected. I reached over and stopped the recording on the app. I then initiated a secure backup to 2 separate cloud drives. This was no longer just a suspicious email or a financial record. This was a confession. He threatened Derek, Keisha said. He as much as said he'd kill you if you came back and implied he'd hurt Derek too if he didn't cooperate. He did. I leaned back in my chair. The cold focus that had sustained me for weeks now had a new, sharp edge. This changed the equation. Derek was no longer just a weak link. He was a potential victim of Marcus's desperation. His guilt could be leveraged, not just for evidence, but for his own protection. What now? Keisha asked. We give this to Ana Flores? To the police? Yes, but first we need to ensure Derek is physically safe. Marcus is unraveling. A threat made in anger is one thing. A threat recorded, a plan in ruins. He may act irrationally. I thought for a moment. We need to pull Derek out. We use his confession to Keisha and this recording as proof of his subordinate role and the danger he's in. We offer him a deal, his testimony for protection. He might refuse. He's terrified of his father. He's more terrified now. He just heard his father imply he might be disposable. I looked at the tablet. The recording was a weapon of immense power. It was time to change tactics. The passive listening was over. The next move was a direct confrontation, but it had to be staged with precision, with all the pieces in place. The recording was the key that would lock the cage for good. I allowed myself a single, slow breath. The end game was now in sight. The recording was a live wire in the room. Keisha and I looked at each other, the implications settling into a shared, grim understanding. We had the evidence. Now we had to use it to force an end. Anna Flores agreed with my assessment about Derek's safety. She contacted the district attorney's office directly, playing them the key segments of the recording. Their interest, previously procedural, became immediate. A prosecutor named Carter was assigned. He agreed that Derek could be offered a plea deal in exchange for his testimony, given his subordinate role and the explicit threat from Marcus. But first, Derek had to be extracted and brought in. The plan was set for the next afternoon. Keisha would call Derek, using the established trust. She would tell him she had received a package for him from me, something urgent, and he needed to come to her apartment alone. If he mentioned it to Marcus, the plan was aborted. We held our breath. Derek arrived at Keisha's door at 3 p.m., looking pale and exhausted. When he stepped inside and saw me standing there, alive and alert, he froze. His eyes widened, his mouth fell open. He took a stumbling step back. "Mom?" The word was a disbelieving whisper. "Hello, Derek." My voice was calm. I did not move toward him. You're okay? But how?" He looked between Keisha and me, confusion and a dawning horror on his face. "The hospital said you were gone." Dad said, "Your father said a lot of things." I gestured to the chair. "Sit down. We need to talk." He sat, his movements robotic. Keisha stood by the door, a silent sentinel. I remained standing, placing the tablet on the coffee table in front of him. "I heard everything, Derek. From the beginning, in the operating room, when the anesthesia was wearing off. I heard your father's plan. I heard you agree to it." His face crumpled. He dropped his head into his hands. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean... I was scared. I know you were. I also heard your conversation with Keisha, your apology, and I heard the argument you had with your father yesterday." I tapped the tablet screen. "We recorded it." His head snapped up. "What?" "We recorded it. We have his confession. We have his threat against you. We have everything." I leaned forward slightly. "The district attorney has it too. They are prepared to charge your father with conspiracy to commit murder, insurance fraud, and making criminal threats. You are named as a co-conspirator." The color drained completely from his face. "I'll go to prison." "Not necessarily." I kept my tone even, transactional. "The prosecutor is offering you a deal, full immunity from prosecution in exchange for your sworn testimony against your father, your truthful account of the plan from the beginning, your cooperation." He stared at me, hope and terror warring in his eyes. "He'll kill me." "He won't get the chance. If you take this deal, you will be placed in protective custody tonight. After your testimony, you will enter a relocation program. You will have a chance to start over, away from him. It's the only way out he left for you." He was silent for a long minute, his breath coming in short gasps. Finally, he looked at me, his eyes swimming with tears. "Why would you help me? After what I did? Because despite everything, you are my son, and he is using you, just like he tried to use me. This is your chance to stop being used." I did not say I forgave him. That was a separate matter, a personal ledger for another time. This was a business proposition for survival. He nodded, a slow, heavy movement. Okay, I'll do it." Keisha called Anna Flores, who patched in Prosecutor Carter. He spoke to Derek directly, outlining the terms. An hour later, 2 unmarked cars arrived. Derek was taken into protective custody. He looked back at me once from the doorway, a lost boy, before he disappeared. The next move was mine, the final confrontation. With Derek secured, the prosecutor authorized a tactical team to be stationed outside our home, but I insisted on going in first with Keisha and Dr. Shaw. I needed to face him. I needed him to see me, to know he had lost. At 7 p.m., we drove to the house. My house. The porch light was on. Through the living room window, I could see Marcus pacing, phone to his ear, his silhouette sharp with agitation. I walked up the path, Keisha on one side, Dr. Shaw on the other. I used my key in the lock. The familiar click was loud in the quiet evening. I pushed the door open and stepped inside. Marcus turned, his face a mask of impatient fury that melted into pure, uncomprehending shock. The phone fell from his hand and clattered on the hardwood floor. "Hello, Marcus," I said. He stared, his jaw working soundlessly. He looked at Keisha, at Dr. Shaw, then back at me. "Valerie," he finally choked out, You're awake?" "Yes, and quite well, thank you." I walked further into the living room, reclaiming the space. "I believe you were expecting someone else. A corpse, perhaps." His shock hardened into a venomous glare. "Where have you been? What is this? What are you doing with them?" "I've been recovering from the surgery and from the betrayal." I stopped in the center of the room. "We need to talk about the insurance policy, the one that pays double for accidental death during surgery." He paled but held his ground. "I don't know what you're talking about. You were confused after the anesthesia. You're clearly still unwell." "Am I?" I took the tablet from Keisha. "Then let's refresh your memory." I tapped the screen. The audio from yesterday's argument filled the room. "I made it necessary to save us, to save you from your own failures. You're just as guilty as I am. The only way out is through. We stick to the story. Then we have a much more serious problem, a problem we would have to solve permanently." Marcus's face went from white to a sickly gray as he heard his own voice, cold and calculating, plotting her murder a second time. He took a step toward me, a menacing lunge. Dr. Shaw moved instantly, placing himself slightly in front of me. "That's a fake! You edited that!" Marcus spat. "It's been authenticated by the district attorney's office," I said calmly. "Derek is already in protective custody. He has corroborated every detail. He's given his statement." The mention of Derek broke him. His defiance shattered into panic. "You bitch," he hissed. "You turned my own son against me." "You did that yourself," I said, "when you asked him to help kill his mother." Outside, the tactical team, having heard the confirmation of the threat via our open phone line to Prosecutor Carter, moved in. There was a sharp knock on the door. "Police, open up!" I looked at Marcus, at the man I had shared a life with, now standing, hollowed out and raging in the ruins of his own design. "It's over, Marcus." The door opened. Uniformed officers entered, their expressions stern. Marcus was red as rights, his hands pulled behind his back. As they led him out, he twisted to look at me one last time, his eyes filled with a hate so pure it was almost impersonal. I held his gaze, my own face a placid mask until he was gone from the house, from my life. The silence he left behind was vast and clean. I turned to Keisha and Dr. Shaw. The performance was over. The truth had been awakened. Now, the rest of my life could begin. The house was quiet after they took Marcus away. The silence felt different from the oppressive stillness I had maintained in the hospital. This was an empty silence, waiting to be filled. Keisha put the kettle on. Dr. Shaw checked my blood pressure, a final professional gesture of care, before he left to give his formal statement to the police. I stood in the center of the living room, surrounded by the furniture we had chosen together, and felt nothing but a vast, hollow relief. The legal machinery I had set in motion now operated with its own momentum. Marcus was charged with conspiracy to commit murder, attempted murder, insurance fraud, and making criminal threats. He pleaded not guilty, of course. His defense argued coercion, confusion, and later that I had manipulated the situation. It did not matter. Derek, true to his deal, testified. He entered the courtroom under guard, avoiding my eyes at first. But when he took the stand, he told the truth. He recounted his father's initial proposal, the pressure, his own fear and guilt. He confirmed the conversation in the operating room, the details of the insurance policy, the argument we had recorded. His testimony was halting and painful, but it was consistent. The prosecutor played the recording. The jury heard Marcus's cold plotting in his own voice. The trial lasted 8 days. I testified for one of them. I answered the questions put to me by the prosecutor and then by Marcus's defense attorney. He tried to suggest anesthetic hallucination, a misunderstanding born of trauma. He asked if I felt betrayed by my son. I said, "I feel the facts speak for themselves." I did not look at Marcus. I looked at the jury. I saw their faces shift from curiosity to pity to quiet anger as the evidence mounted. The verdict was guilty on all counts. At the sentencing hearing, I read a brief victim impact statement. I did not speak of rage or loss. I stated the facts of what had been taken, my sense of security, my trust, the life I had built. I said I was there not for vengeance, but for accountability. The judge sentenced Marcus to 25 years to life. He was led away in handcuffs, and I felt the door to that part of my life close with a definitive click. The financial disentanglement was handled by Ana Flores. The marriage was legally dissolved. The life insurance policy was voided due to fraud, but the company, facing potential scandal, offered a confidential settlement. I accepted it. It was not the blood money Marcus had sought. It was restitution. I used a portion to pay off the remaining mortgage on the house, which was now solely mine. I sold it. I could not live within those walls, with the ghost of that whisper in every room. The largest portion of the settlement I set aside for a specific purpose. Derek entered a witness protection program. He was relocated to another state. Before he left, he asked, through his court-appointed counselor, if he could see me. I agreed. We met in a neutral office. He looked older, thinner, but his eyes were clearer. "I don't expect you to forgive me," he said immediately, his voice low. "I don't know if I can," I replied. It was the truth, but I do not wish you further harm. I hope you build a better life, one where you are not afraid to say no. He nodded, tears in his eyes. He tried to say more, but I held up a hand. Some things were beyond words. We parted with a nod, a final, fragile acknowledgement. That chapter, too, was closed. It took a year of healing, of quiet mornings in Keisha's apartment, until I found a small, sunny condo of my own. A year of long walks, of rebuilding my strength, of having coffee with Keisha, and occasional updates from Dr. Shaw, who had become a steadfast friend. The community I had once served as a garden coordinator remembered me. They asked after me. They welcomed me back. And so, on a bright Saturday morning, surrounded by the people from my neighborhood, by Keisha, by Dr. Shaw and Ana Flores, I stood before a new building in a once vacant lot. It was a single-story structure with wide windows and a community garden already started in the back. The sign above the door was simple. It read, "The Second Breath Community Wellness Center." I had used the restitution money to fund it. It would offer free health workshops, a lending library of medical equipment, a peaceful garden for reflection, and meeting spaces for support groups. It was not a monument to my survival, but a tool for others in theirs. At the ribbon cutting, I was asked to say a few words. I stepped up to the small microphone. "This center is born from a difficult story," I said, my voice clear in the quiet crowd. "But its purpose is not to look back. Its purpose is to help people breathe easier, to find a second breath when they need it most, to find community. Thank you for being here for its first." I cut the ribbon. The crowd applauded. People began to stream inside, curious and smiling. Keisha slipped her arm through mine and squeezed. Dr. Shaw nodded at me from across the room, a look of quiet pride on his face. I stood in the sunshine, feeling its warmth on my skin. The gray streaks in my hair were now more pronounced, but I no longer saw them as signs of age or stress. They were simply part of me, earned and unapologetic. The anger was gone, converted into something useful. The sadness had been acknowledged and given its own space, no longer ruling me. The cold, calculating focus that had saved my life had softened into a steady, purposeful determination. I looked at the garden, at the freshly turned soil waiting for seeds. I thought of the hydrangeas by the back fence of my old first house, how we had revived them with water and stubborn hope. This was my new soil, my first bloom. I took a deep, unburdened breath, my own second breath, and walked inside to join my friends.